All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about the absolutely savage 3-year war that put one of history's most famous and infamous kings on the throne, Herod the Great. And look, this isn't just some war story. It's a tale of invasion, a fugitive's desperate gamble, and a stunning comeback that completely wiped a 100-year-old dynasty right off the map. So just think about this for a second. In 41 BCE, Herod was a total rising star. He was a governor, and he had the full weight of Rome behind him. But less than a year later, he was a wanted fugitive, literally running for his life. This is the story of how he pulled off that incredible comeback. Okay, so to really get what's happening, you have to picture Judea at this time. It was not some stable, independent kingdom. It was what's called a Roman client state, which basically means it was a house of cards, stuck right between these massive, clashing empires, just waiting for a strong wind to knock it all over. And this breakdown of the power structure is just fascinating. See, on paper, you had Hyrcanus II. He was from the local Hasmonean dynasty, the family that had won Judea its independence a century earlier. But let's be real. By this point, he was mostly a figurehead. The real power, the day-to-day muscle, belonged to Herod and his brother Phasael. And why? Because they were appointed directly by their Roman patron, Mark Antony. The key thing to remember is that their authority was tied completely to Rome.
You've got this really fragile situation, and then boom, it all comes crashing down. The catalyst is a huge invasion from Rome's #1 rival in the East, the Parthian Empire. In a flash, the entire political chessboard just gets flipped over.
So this brings us to the two men at the absolute heart of this conflict. On one side, you have Antigonus. He's a Hasmonean royal heir, he's got the bloodline, he represents legitimacy, tradition, you name it. And on the other side, you've got Herod. He's a brilliant political operator for sure, but with zero royal blood. What he does have are very, very powerful friends in Rome. So it sets up this classic showdown, old-school legitimacy versus raw, Roman-backed ambition. And the whole thing collapsed with just shocking speed. When the Parthians invaded in 40 BCE, Antigonus saw his opening. He sided with the invaders and pulled off this brilliant coup. By the end of that 1 year, Jerusalem had fallen, and Herod's entire world was turned upside down. He wasn't a governor anymore, he was a wanted man. So let's just pause here for a second and look at where Herod is. He's been completely defeated. His brother is a prisoner, there's a new king on the throne who wants him dead. It really, really looks like it's game over, right? Well, not quite. This is where things look truly hopeless for him. I mean, what could he possibly do? His only real ally, Rome, was completely distracted. His main guy, Mark Antony, was being dragged into a nasty power struggle with his rival, Octavian, a fight that was about to explode into a massive civil war. And with Rome looking inward, its grip on faraway places like Judea was slipping big time. So what does he do? He makes one of the most audacious, high-stakes gambles in history. He flees to the very heart of the empire, to Rome itself, to plead his case in person. And the way he did it was just politically brilliant. He didn't show up in Rome begging for a crown for himself. No way. His official story was that he was just a loyal subordinate, there to plead for his old boss, Hyrcanus, to be restored. He masterfully framed the entire thing as being in Rome's best interest, not his own. But see, when Herod actually got in front of the senators, they had a completely different idea. For the super pragmatic Roman Senate, this wasn't about tradition or who their rightful king was. The only question that mattered to them was this: who is going to be our guy? Who's the most effective, the most reliable, and, let's be honest, the most ruthless client king we can install to protect our interests? So the Senate looked at its options. On the one hand, you've got Hyrcanus, who'd already proven he was too weak to hold the throne. And on the other hand, you've got Herod, ambitious, tough, and a proven Roman loyalist. For them, it was an absolute no-brainer. And in this truly stunning turn of events, the Senate just completely bypassed the old dynasty. They looked at this fugitive who'd come to plead for his boss, and instead, they declared him the new king of the Jews. Just try to imagine that. Herod went to Rome asking for a crown for someone else and walked out wearing it himself. It's insane. But here's the thing, and it's a huge thing. Having a fancy title from the Roman Senate is one thing. Actually ruling the kingdom, that's a whole different ballgame. That title wasn't a gift. It was a license to go to war. Herod now had to physically conquer the very kingdom that was supposedly his. And man, was it a long road ahead. In 40 BCE, he's declared king in Rome. But that's just on paper. For the next 2 years, from 39 to 38, he had to do the grueling work of putting an army together, making alliances, and just conquering the countryside piece by bloody piece. Only then, in 37 BCE, could he finally march on Jerusalem for the final showdown. And in the middle of all this, Herod pulls another brilliant political move. He marries a woman named Mariamne. Now, she was the granddaughter of the old ruler and the niece of his current rival. It was a total masterstroke, welding his new Roman-backed power to the old, respected Hasmonean bloodline. It gave his rule a thin but crucial layer of legitimacy. So by 37 BCE, after nearly 3 years of savage fighting, it all comes down to this. The war reaches its climax at the walls of Jerusalem, where Antigonus is dug in for his last desperate stand. With help from the Roman governor of Syria, Herod's combined army laid siege, and the fight was long and vicious. We're talking about the city being taken street by bloody street. When Jerusalem finally fell, Antigonus was captured. But Herod knew that for his new dynasty to be secure, the old one had to be completely and totally eliminated. So he had Antigonus sent to Mark Antony, who had him executed. It was a ruthless move, but in Herod's mind, an absolutely necessary final act. And with that one final execution, the war was officially over. The Hasmonean dynasty, which had ruled Judea for a century, was finished. And this wasn't just some local power shift. It sent a crystal-clear signal across the entire Roman Empire. Rome had just shown every other client kingdom that loyalty and ruthless effectiveness mattered way more than tradition or bloodlines. So Herod had won the war, no doubt about it. But this question, this is the one that really matters, isn't it? Could a king who was basically installed by a foreign power ever truly win the loyalty of his own subjects? That single question would haunt him and define his entire long and incredibly controversial reign. This victory set the stage for decades of these amazing, monumental building projects, but also for deep, dark paranoia and brutal conflict within his own family. The war for the land of Judea was over, but the struggle for its soul, well, that was just getting started.